Good morning, everybody. Morning in Tucson again. My name is Donna Reed. I traveled in Up With People 1976A. And for Paul Caldwell, I'm wearing a cactus pin this morning for the Cactus Lounge. This morning, I'm going to interview Caleb Reed. And there's probably 200 or 300 of you that know that Caleb is my son, and about 23,000 who don't know that he's my son. So morning, Caleb.
Good morning.
And Caleb just informed me that he doesn't wake up this early for anybody, so I need to be appreciative. I have had a lot of trouble, a little bit more difficulty getting the kids, the 30-year-olds and that generation to be able to commit time to do this. They're busy, they're working full time, they're doing extra stuff, they're raising kids. So thank you, Caleb. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Okay. So Caleb, tell everybody where you live now and what you're doing.
Hi. So I live in Denver, Colorado. I work at a language immersion school in the front office and on their operations team.
Okay. And when did you travel?
I was 2013 casts A and B, and then I worked tech staging in 2014.
Okay. And I started out these questions with, did you stage in Tucson or Denver? And then I found out people staged all over the place, with some of the other interviews. Right. So where did you go to learn the show?
My first semester, we were in Lakeland, Florida. They were setting up not study abroad. It was like, you could get college credits, and they were setting up the deal with the university that we were staging at. So it was kind of like an olive branch to like work together for that semester, as I understand. And then my second semester, we staged in Denver.
Okay.
And Broomfield, right?
Right. Yeah. It's like saying Tucson if it isn't Tucson. So, what is your first memory of seeing a show seeing a show?
Yeah. We lived in Ohio at the time. We were up near Toledo, and you took us to see, I think, Rhythm of the World. I want to say it was like 94-ish. And I remember it because we had family in town from Kansas, and my cousin TJ, who is a comparable age from me, got pulled up to go on stage, except he didn't want to go. He was on the end of the aisle, and they were bringing up all these kids to do a skit, and he was not willing to go. And I was like, I'll go. And so I got pulled up on stage because he was a more shy child than me.
That's funny.
Yeah, 94, maybe 92, but it was in Toledo, Ohio. You've told me that we were also with the Glassners.
That's true.
At that event.
Yeah, Bob and Pat would have been there. Yep, right.
It could have been the same show. It could have been a different one, but I was 6 or 7, so who knows? So
did you go on? Did you do see Painter of the Sky? Was that?
Yes, that was that show. So I do want to say Rhythm of the World.
Yeah, I don't know the names of the shows. I'm really bad at that. So, yeah, could be, but maybe that's what they took, or children. Boy, it'd be interesting to see if there's an alumni that remembers what that show was, or what you went on stage for.
The show that had Painter of the Sky, which is not the name of the song. It's called like The Gods of something or other. And it was about—
How does it go?
I am the king of thunder and lightning. I own the hurricane. That's the dark character. But the other guy goes, I'm the painter of the sky. Above the clouds I fly so high. It was about the environment, you see. So during that show, they brought a bunch of kids up on stage, and I don't think it was to sing. I think it was like a skit, not a skit, but like they taught us movement or something.
That's very possible. So we'll have to see if somebody from that show, and I think maybe we were hosting people. I can't remember if we hosted people or not, but anyway, okay. So I wondered if that was, because one of my first memories is that Painter of the Sky, song when you guys were kids. So tell me,
I'm going to look it up on Spotify while we're
of course you are, because why would you not multitask? So tell me, knowing that your mom had traveled and your dad didn't, what is your memory or thoughts about Up With People, like as a kid and growing up?
I don't think I really got it that Dad didn't travel. I think I remember it mostly, and this is kind of weird to say, as music we would listen to on road trips. I was aware that you were like a big fan, maybe, or I was aware that it was something that you were like involved with. And I know you had a reunion at our house when we were young, but I don't think I don't think I connected that it was two of the same thing until much later when we moved to Tucson and you started being involved with reunions all the time. Oh, it was World in Motion. It's called the Guardians of the Universe. The album was 93. So I think 94 feels right. Anyways, World in Motion cast. Guardians of the Universe. Yeah, I don't think I got it that you were a member of the group that we were listening to, but we listened to a lot of those on road trips a lot because road trips.
We did. We used to talk about, we would have your dad sort of like Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd, a little bit of Up With People, a little bit of Broadway tunes. So tell me what you remember about the reunion at my house.
Well, there's the famous story. So my mom, you were always, apparently, according to everybody in your cast, the person who wrote letters to everyone. You're the person who stayed in contact with everybody, or as many people as you can. And so you had not an impromptu, but like just a personal reunion at our house. And we lived in a town of 500 people on like the edge of a cornfield. Our town in Ohio was very, very small. And I remember we had like, I want to say like 30 people, which when I think of how many people I could try and get together right now from my cast, I'm blown away by that. We probably had like 30 people, their significant others, maybe if they were social, outgoing people. And I remember we had a big party in our backyard. And the big famous story is that your two good friends got naked and ran through our cornfield next to us.
No
Which if you've never run through corn, it cuts you. It's not pleasant. It's really sharp. It's like getting thousands of paper cuts. So they ran through the cornfield naked because hooray, they're from California and hadn't been near corn or something. And then they ran back out screaming, probably drunk. I was 6-ish or whatever, and jumped in our kiddie pool because they needed water. But we had one of those little circular kiddie pools, I think for our puppies or geese, maybe. We had a kiddie pool because we had newborn puppies and they jumped in the kiddie pool to soothe their wounds.
You are correct. That was a thing.
I also think this was at midnight. Like, I think this was like really late.
It very well could have been. I am not 100% sure. So we'll move on from that story.
I have one other memory, actually. I have one other memory related to that. That's not funny. Your good friend, I want to say it was Will, sang in our church, What Color is God's Skin?
Actually, so I don't know if Will sang it or Bill Murs might have sung it. Bill's from Cleveland, but you're right. We went to church the next day and we sang God's Skin at church with our organist who didn't, it was interesting and amusing, but yeah, it was a great memory. So that's true. All right. So
the kind of friends that you can have a bunch of them go to your church the next morning after partying in your field.
There you go. That's what Up With People's all about. So now time goes by and you actually went to school and college, graduate. We moved to Arizona, graduated from CDO, went to school up in Flag. And I'm looking at all the Broadway paintings behind you. Tell folks what your degree is in.
I have 2 degrees. One of them is in film writing and the other one is theater performance.
Okay. So even though you work at a school, your passion is still sort of theater, right?
Very much so. The passion that I like wish could be what paid my bills, but I've not put any honest effort into having it be that thing.
Yeah. And I remember when we did a fundraiser for you that all 3 of you guys, Grant, Adam, and you all performed. You'd been in some shows, but had you done any singing?
As an adult at that point?
Well, I mean, even though you'd done theater, you were kind of the little kid in a lot of shows in Ohio.
No, I hadn't done any singing. I did like choir in 7th grade. No, I had not been a singer with anything real. Minus one show in college, I did the Fantastics. I played the mute. Which is a relevant part if you know the Fantastics, but I didn't sing. No, I'm thinking about that. No, I didn't do any singing through high school because I did straight theater. Yeah. I didn't do any singing in college because they didn't have a music program unless you were doing like orchestra and choir, as opposed or like vocal as opposed to theater. It was a separate department. I did some Shakespeare and stuff out of college, and then I joined Up With People. So I guess it had been since 7th grade. So
yeah. A long time. And
15 to 20 years since I had taken any actual singing lessons.
So when you made the decision to join up with people, I mean, clearly I remember some of that,
Mhm.
but tell everybody how old you were when you traveled and how old people thought you were.
I was 26 and I turned 27 on the road about a few months in. Everybody thought I was 15 tops. Everybody assumed I was the oldest person in the cast, or the youngest person in the cast. There's an activity they do in staging, or they did in staging my time or nowadays, where called cross the line, where they say a fact, and if it represents you, you go to the other side, and then there's a discussion that's like kind of guided. And I remember the question of like, do you feel like you're in a separate group than certain people here? And I crossed the line and people kind of asked me why, because I'm pretty whatever. And like I explained myself, and I remember like audible gasps from the other half of the room. It was interesting. It was like me and like three cast staff members.
We're the only ones that were
Like
that age.
we feel like out. Yeah, I mean, I had a couple cast members. We had a couple people who were in the 25 to 30 as opposed to the 18 to 25. Not a lot. Not a
No,
lot.
no.
I was older than most of my staff.
Yeah, yeah. And so you, I've talked, the person that I just interviewed, Zan, traveled in like sing out, transferring to Up With People. She traveled in 1967, Caleb. I don't know if you've listened to that.
Yeah.
And so they had 250 people in a cast, and they had 5 buses, and they were segregated. Men and women were separated. And their costumes were provided. You should have, if you haven't listened to it, like they had like designer costumes. So tell everybody that doesn't know about the more recent travel years about your bus. I think you guys call them bus dates, and about your costumes. And then how long were you in most towns? Because that's very different than when I traveled.
Bus dates, costumes, towns. So we weren't. I don't know if segregate is the right word by gender, but we were separate. We were not separated by gender. They still did push for people to not be hosted with other castmates of the same gender, but it did happen. Just I think to the decline in popularity of Up With People, it's a little bit like, this is what we got to do. Or if a host family requested specific people. So, for example, when I came off the road, we requested 4 of my castmates in Tucson, boy and girl.
Right.
So I think those boundaries have opened up a little bit, but not a lot. But on the road, it was very much encouraged to have bus dates, which was sit next to someone you don't know very well every time you travel. Every travel day, it was encouraged to plan who you're going to sit next to, because it's a valuable time to get to know someone. And you can't do that always. And there are people who I had amazing cast managers who happen to now be married and have kids, right? They
Say who they are.
Yeah, Paul Konzemius and Leslie Kleiman. Well, Leslie Kleiman Konzemius. They were our cast managers on the road, and they were excellent examples of, no, we're here, we're leaders. But by month 6, they were allowed to sit together, right? They knew each other, but they were allowed to spend a little bit of time together. I think most people started strong with like, I'm going to try and sit next to someone. I'm going to try and get to know a new person. And then month 3 or 4, you're like, I really like this person though. And we're good friends and I'd like to spend time with them also. I do feel in a different way, because I know in the old days, you traveled, performed. There was a lot of, it was very busy. We were still busy, but it wasn't the same kind of thing. Nonetheless, you don't get to spend a bunch of time all the time with the people that you've bonded really close with. You're lucky if you get assigned to the same community outreach day or whatever, right? If you, God forbid, happen to get put in the same host family, it was amazing. I was because I was older, and because I was confident with my language, and I was told this, this is not my own presumption. I was one of the people chosen to be alone a lot. So I was hosted with a group my first month. And then I had like 1 or 2 roommates. And by the end of my year, I was alone like 9 weeks in a row, because they knew that I was going to be a little bit, once again, I was told this, that they're like, yeah, we weren't nervous that you were going to have a hard time with language or host families or whatever. So I was not lucky enough to get hosted with my close friends all the time, right? I was lucky enough to have the experience of the host family on my own, right? It's a different positive.
Yeah.
But bus dates really became a thing where it's spend time, get to know each other, and then get to know each other better once you already know each other. So some of my best memories were 13 hours across wherever with whoever. I have very good friends now where I'm like, we still talk about how much we bonded on that event where we were close beforehand, closer, and it's stuck after the bus date.
Yeah.
Lastly, costumes. We were told a color scheme and to bring a bunch of. So my semester, it was like, here's the color palette. You're allowed to wear jeans, but not this color jeans or whatever. Bring options. Bring a bunch of, for men, it was collared shirts. Or if I'm assuming if you had said I would prefer to wear a collared shirt, it would have been fine. But collared shirt, bring a bunch of options in the color palette, and they'd pick it out to try and create diversity amongst the different shirts. So not everyone had a bright red shirt. I know after me, they had loosened up a lot, where it was like your jeans could have tears in them because it was going for like a cooler aesthetic. People had a lot more like accent pieces, which I remember a lot of scarves, which the reason I remember it is because I feel like it'd be really hard to dance in. Actually, of all the things, a scarf feels like it would fly off.
Yeah.
Right. If you were dancing. Now, I guess if you were doing a really hard dance, you would probably switch costumes or something. But I remember they had a lot of like, there were lots of like cooler looking belts and I want to say like a hat or two. Even is that crazy?
That's very possible.
I think they had a lot of like accent flair. Geez, my hair is doing stuff because I woke up too early.
You're the costumes were such a different thing than for us.
And I loved it. The ability to make someone feel confident because they're wearing clothes they provided. And then we're chosen amongst them. But everybody on stage, I guarantee, felt comfortable in what they were wearing because it wasn't assigned.
That's interesting.
Clothes that fit them the way they felt good about themselves. Clothes that look a little bit cooler, which I do think matters nowadays. And just like, no, this is mine. I feel good about it. I'm not going to hurt it. It stays in my like costume, but your shoes, you got to provide yourself. So if you needed better arch support, you provided your better arch support, right? I think that is probably a good thing. It's less unified looking maybe, but I think it's a good thing.
So you, there's a couple of stories that you've told me about, because I've kind of been asking everybody about food experiences and stuff, but first, tell everybody about your experience in the teepee with your friends.
Wait, is this related to food or just like before?
No,
we get to food?
This is not related to food. There's two things here, Caleb. My brain, you know how I am. I'm going to do two things, but I want to know that's an experience that I think is an awesome one to share, relevant to Up With People and what it does in your life.
Yeah. We went to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and we were on the Native American reservation there. There was an opportunity to stay in a teepee for the whole week. And it was kind of like we had to apply for it. I found out later that some other people also got to do it because their host family just had a teepee as well. But we had to like submit to get in the teepee, and it's huge. There was space for 6 of us. And when I talk about being hosted with people who I'm very good friends with, this is the event where I can't believe who I lucked into getting to be hosted with, where it was like Paul Kanzemius, who I'm seeing today, and Andreas, who's my closest friend, and Cameron, who traveled from Virginia with Andreas from Norway, and we drove to reunion together. Like, it was very, very cool. Bram in Belgium and Joris. I want to shout at everyone. I don't want to leave one out. I talked to Bram yesterday, and Joris was another staff member who was very good friends with all of us. It was a wildly cool experience to get to be hosted with these people. But we stayed in a teepee. Now, we stayed in a teepee in someone's backyard, right? It was, I think the image of it is like we're in the woods and we're all alone. It's not what it was. But our host dad, Brian Red Star Eagle Feathers, he would come out every night and tell us stories, and the top of a teepee is open, so we would light a little like fire in the center of the teepee. I remember he would just talk to us, and he was like such a cool like storyteller kind of person. That's his personality. But he would come out and he would talk to us like before bed for like hours. And we were just like laying there or sitting there. And I remember reading books to everybody in the dark. It was a very, very cool experience. But I think the more moving experience you're talking about is we got to do a sweat lodge.
Right.
And we did a sweat with a couple other host families, because you cram a lot of people at a sweat lodge. It's like sardines, where you're sitting kind of like with your knees up and you're touching people. So, and I know a couple other castmates did this in different places, but I am not a religious person, and this is maybe the most spiritual thing I've ever experienced. It was they gave us all the instructions, and they asked for like prayers beforehand, and I requested a prayer for my brother or whatever, right? And we went in, and they were singing, and it was like they all kind of knew their guided songs, and the rest of us who were just not observers, we were participants, but we weren't leaders in the event. We listened, and I remember touching the people next to me and being able to feel the body heat. And they tell you to like slap parts of your body that are they told us, I shouldn't generalize, right? They told us like, yeah, slap parts of your body where it's like sore or you're feeling tension, and the heat will rise to the top. And you could feel like your castmate or your host family's like sweat like splattering on your body in the complete darkness, with where all you can see is like smoke, and your eyes kind of burn. Your head, you're definitely keeping your head down a little bit, or closing your eyes even while they're singing. And you do this in like 15 minutes in, a couple minutes out, 15 minutes in, and it's like there's no shame if you need to leave. It's better to be safe. But like that desire to be like, I can get through this, and they're just pouring more water on these hot rocks. And it was the biggest sensory memory I have is like kind of the, not perfume, but like the herbs that they put on the fire, whatever.
Oh yeah.
I remember like it felt like incense or like lavender and like a steam shower or something. But it was like it was such a full sensory experience. Like your sight's blinded, you're feeling your body so much. You're sitting kind of like in an uncomfortable position, and then worried about like touching the fire, God forbid, if you're like, because you're sitting in a circle, but there's multiple layers of the circle to fit more people in. So I was behind someone, but I'm pretty sure Cameron was in front of me. And I think his feet were like approaching the fire pit in the middle, right? Where it's like,
Wow.
Don't fall into that because your muscles get tired. It was amazing. It's something I'll never, ever forget.
Yeah, I remember when you came home, that was one of the things that you shared about. All right, so now we're gonna jump to food because
I'm the worst.
Because you're the worst. So when I think about when people travel, or even now, how like as a 30-year-old, you showed me your first salad or something that you ate. So I think it was Switzerland,
which would make it 5 years ago now.
Okay, woo!
If I had my first.
At age 30, he had a salad. Go vegetables. So, tell us, was it in Geneva or somewhere in Switzerland?
Geneva.
What's that story about the food?
So, quick summary to everybody. I have no food allergies, but I'm probably the pickiest person you've ever met. I dislike everything, but specifically vegetables. Like there's not a one. Potatoes, maybe. Corn, maybe.
Yeah,
anyways,
starchy vegetables.
Yeah. And I was always very upfront about it, and I didn't have a single host family that was put out by it. I was just like, hey, like in advance, in the most polite version of that, I would be like, I'm not huge into this stuff. I will eat whatever you tell me is important. I will eat whatever you think is culturally relevant. This is not my thing though, and I don't want you to expect it to be my thing. And I didn't have a single person who was put out by it or cared about it. I did have a family in Geneva, Switzerland. I was hosted there with my buddy Rob, and it was very funny because he's like, no, this is great. He's just laughing at me. Who before dinner they would put out a bowl of fruit, which they're like, yeah, have a fruit while we cook dinner. Everybody sit at the table, and we'd each eat like a kiwi, because it gets your there might be science to this, and I just don't know, but it would get your body
juices.
Yeah, it would be like, it'd get you going. Yeah. And then they came out like one of our nights. It wasn't every night, but they set like a vegetable in front of me, and that was the only thing on the plate. And they just stared at me, and I was like, what's going on? And they're like, you have to eat that beforehand.
Before you get the bread or the cheese or the stuff.
There's like all this other stuff I like. They're like, you're required to eat that beforehand. And they just like waited. It's like, you jerks. It was so funny.
Oh gosh. All right. So
but then there's places like Mexico where I don't like a lot of what they make in Mexico. Yeah. But man, oh man, Mexico is amazing for people who are picky, because most dinners are deconstructed. you're kind of making your own thing, and everything in Mexico's good.
Well, and that's where you learn to like mole, right?
Oh yeah, it's the best.
Yeah, yeah. You also had a cool experience there on the Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos, right?
I had it when I think of cultural experiences, besides the sweat lodge, there's two. One, Dia de los Muertos, we went and they took me to the cemetery and it was night and people were singing songs all throughout the cemetery and we were at their family plot and they had provided candles and flowers for my dad.
Marigolds?
Marigolds for my father who had passed. And they placed him on their family plot. And it was kind of like we're hanging out on the back of a truck eating chips and like drinking sodas. It felt a little bit like tailgating, but at night at a cemetery with music and fireworks and stuff happening all over. Very cool. But the other one is we got taken, me and a couple different host families. We played a game of soccer on a dirt lot at like 8 p.m. against the local kids.
Oh, also in Mexico?
In Mexico. And so there were 10 of us and these kids from Mexico kicked our asses. I remember my knees were like super scraped up. And I remember like Tonio, one of my staff members who's from Mexico, was like super disappointed, but very supportive in our performance. Like there were a bunch of us who were either not athletic or specifically not from countries that don't appreciate soccer, right? Where I'm like, I'm trying. I think I'm athletic, but this is not a sport I ever played because my country doesn't care enough or whatever, right? We were getting our asses kicked by these little kids. And I remember we were all bloody because we're like throwing ourselves around trying to do a good job.
Trying to be young.
Well, and trying to like beat children. They were probably 12, but they were awesome. And it was a dirt lot with rocks. And I was like, can I just be the goalie? Running's not my thing. And I remember like falling all over. I was torn up, but I've never felt like connected, like I experienced a community the way I did there.
Oh, that's neat. Amazing. I don't think I knew that.
All our host families are like, there were people like in the community, like watching on the sides because there were like bleachers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So cool. So cool.
Okay. So Caleb's songs in the show, you did, John Lanham ended up being your music. What do they call the job? Voice instructor. Thanks. For at least maybe second semester. I don't know, maybe first semester. I can't remember.
My first semester.
But what songs from your show impacted you? Because, you know, a lot of people at every reunion, we've been doing reunions for 40 years. They've heard Roads, they've heard Moonrider, they've heard, you know, certain things, give the children back their childhood. What songs in your show do you still hold really dear?
Yeah, there's the song that's actually the one that's kind of like carried over and been picked up more is Home, which they've modified a little bit. But Home was a song that I think clicked with people because it was a good song. It's like, this sounds like a current pop rock song that we would listen to.
Was that the ending of your show or the beginning of it?
It wasn't. It's just a good song and everyone bonded with it because the lyrics are like, no matter where you are, no matter where you're from. And it was about the environment. It was about like protecting the earth, and the video behind us was about the earth.
You did that at the reunion. I remember.
I sang that at reunion with later cast a while later, but it was just like a beautiful song that kind of became anthemic for the cast because it was about it. We made it about this is our home.
Anthemic.
Right? Like,
that's such a good word. Thank you, Caleb.
Thank you. The other one, my show had You're My Son, which was written by Michael Bowerman about, I don't think it's a secret, about him losing his father. Right. And that was something where John Lanham sang it my first semester. And you're very close with the Lanhams. You traveled with his mom and dad?
Yeah, both of them.
And John and I became very close. And I met his father and then he lost his father, but I have also lost my father. There was a lot of like emotional connection and kind of lineage emotions related to this other family that we're close to.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to sing that my second semester for most of it. And I remember I wasn't the performer part of me that remembers this crap. It didn't seem like I was going to get to sing it because there were better singers in my cast. I'm a good singer, but there were better singers in my cast, except Brett, who helps write music. I can't think of his last name. I feel like a jerk. He's good friends. He's kind of a person. They say he always helps put comedy in the scripts, or he helps.
Oh,
he really
people. Oh,
yeah,
I don't know. Okay.
His name's Brett. He helps write things. He's good friends with Michael Bowerman as well. Okay. If I remember all this.
You'll have to ask Michael. Yeah.
And he kind of was like, no, you guys should let Caleb do it again, because the audition I saw was different. Like, and I remember he kind of recommended me for it, and I ended up getting to do it, and it mattered a whole lot to me to get to sing that song. I felt like it was important, and it's a song that, like, I've had people come up to me, because in Denver everybody lives here. I've had people come up to me in Denver and be like, "You're still the person that I remember singing that song." And I was like, that's good. I may not be the best singer, but I hope I told that story in a way that was impactful, right?
Was it Atlanta? I think early on in your season.
Statesboro, Georgia.
It was yes. Oh God. No, it was hard for me to listen to. Yeah, it was hard.
Well,
yeah, it was,
you would have seen John sing it there.
I heard you sing it because I have you recorded, but I've also heard John sing it. So maybe it was, so I don't know.
You would have heard me sing it in Mexico.
Maybe we'll have to go back. I have it recorded somewhere. Anyway. All right. So our time is running out. We've, pushing close to the 40 minutes that Zoom allows me for free. We don't know
where... I can record unlimited. I should have done this. I'm on my work.
We don't need unlimited. If we don't know where Up With People is headed, we don't know what the future holds. I know that with you living in Denver, I call that kind of the retirement home for the younger generation of Up With People, because you and Jessica now have a lot of Up With People friends. You talked about going to see Paul, today.
I'm hanging out with a bunch of them today.
That's awesome. Tell them I said hi. I love that. I love that gang. What would you tell a young person? There's so many options for gap years. There's just travel. There's just go, there's couch surfing. There's a million ways to travel different than Up With People. What might you say to someone that was interviewing now to be an Up With People?
It's hard. I think I always wonder if the program would be stronger if it leaned into the performance stuff more, or if it leaned into it less, right? I think it's hard having that middle ground of kids who want to do this but don't actually care about traveling or performing, or people who really want to perform and then would learn to love the other part, but that's not what they're looking for.
That's interesting.
I think the answer is it's kind of hard. I would talk about my experiences, and I would share kind of the family I've made from it. And I would talk about it. But I think, me personally, and this is not necessarily the right answer for the program, but this is where my head's at. I think I would talk to people about how much, if performing or anything like that is something that you're into, like the world impact aspect of music, I think that's who I would talk to. I don't think I would go to a random, particularly shy person and recommend this. Not that they shouldn't, but that's not where I would feel confident talking about it. Okay. I think my experience. Sorry, this may not be the answer you wanted, but it's the answer I have.
Well, and we've only got about 4 minutes, so
yeah,
pick it.
I think people talking about it should pick who they talk to about it.
Oh, interesting.
With consciousness. I would speak to the students of mine who are now approaching senior of high school, the kids who've moved from my middle school, who have gotten into theater. I would talk to them about it. Or students who I know really want to do community impact. I would talk to them about it. And I would talk about what I got to do. I think someone else who maybe is more of an introvert and experience Up With People should talk to people who are maybe introverts and be able to sell their side of it and why it mattered to them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Interesting. It's doing these interviews. It's been such an evolution through the year, and yet host families always, come up as an important piece of it. The long-term connections. When I look at the comments, that I'm seeing online, people are resharing their experiences. That's the way it is for me with my castmates, and a lot of my castmates, because of that. So anyway, any last parting words of wisdom before our timer runs out?
Not parting words of wisdom. I thank everyone, and I love this stuff. The reason some of us just keep being involved in talking about it is because it matters a lot, and it mattered a lot to us. Up With People came at a hard time in my life, and my entire world is different because of it, right? I
Yeah,
moved
good.
somewhere different. I met someone different. My entire social group is different.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would have been okay, but it's not the same path. My
Yeah.
entire world changed because of it.
Yeah. Mine too. So, okay, I'm gonna turn off the recording. I love you.
I
Thank you.
made you, I made you cry. Have you cried on other
You
ones?
I know you always, I get weepy. I know it's like your thing. Can you make mom cry? Anyway, I appreciate it and I love you and I'll talk
Love you
to you.
too.
Okay.
Adios, Todos.
Bye.